Historic Speedwell is an 8.2-acre National and State Register historic site that contains the preserved estate of Stephen Vail, proprietor of the Speedwell Ironworks. It is located approximately 1 mile north of the Green in Morristown, New Jersey, along Route 202. Historic Speedwell is comprised of 9 buildings, 6 of which date from Stephen Vail's ownership of the property or earlier, and 3 which were moved to site as part of preservation efforts in the 1960s. Visiting Historic Speedwell today, you can see Stephen Vail's home and the factory building where the electromagnetic telegraph was first demonstrated in 1838 by Stephen's son Alfred Vail and Samuel F.B. Morse. The factory building contains 3 floors of interactive exhibitry, and the Vail House is decorated to encapsulate 100 years of tenancy, 1790 to 1890. Guided tours are provided of both spaces. 3 additional buildings remain from Stephen Vail's time on the property: the Homestead Carriage House, pictured top left, the 1849 Carriage House, pictured top right, and the Granary Building, pictured bottom right. During the 19th century, the property also included a large barn, several outbuildings, and a greenhouse. There were extensive gardens, orchards, and farmland as well. Today, the Homestead Carriage House is the home of the exhibit The Speedwell Ironworks, a history of workers and work, and an accessible restroom. The 1849 Carriage House is utilized as a classroom. 3 additional buildings were moved to the site during the late 1960s to save them from demolition. These include the Ford Cottage, pictured on the left, the Lamadou Gwinnett House, which is utilized as the site's visitor center in the center, and the Moses Esty House on the right. Phase 1 rehabilitation of the Esty House was completed in 2019 with funding support from the Morris County Historic Preservation Trust. The first known property owner was Thomas Kinney. At the time of his death in 1793, Kinney's estate included the 41-acre lot on the north side of the Whippany River that contained the family farm and shares of the slitting mill that had been established across the street in partnership with Jacob Arnold, commander of the Light Horse Militia during the Revolutionary War. The exact construction date of the Kinney House is unclear, but there is circumstantial evidence that Kinney may have built a home at Speedwell and lived there as early as 1762 as the on-site operations stakeholder for the slitting mill. The 2012 donation of a watercolor featuring the property circa 1790 shows it in a new light. The house is shown for the first time with an addition on the left, which is not present in later depictions of the house. The image also contained a carriage with a K on the rear. Both Thomas Kinney and his son, John, who would inhabit the house in the early 1800s, served during the Revolutionary War, but John fell on hard times in later life, accruing deaths following the long illness and death of his wife, which ultimately led to the seizure of the property and it being taken over by his children. Eventually, Mary Ann Kinney, daughter of John, sold the property and the 2 mortgages assigned to it to Isaac Canfield. Isaac Canfield, Stephen Vail's partner in the Speedwell Ironworks, owned the property for a little more than 1 year. He and his wife sold the Speedwell tract to their son Dayton in March 1822. Dayton Canfield moved into the home with his wife Harriet Vail, eldest daughter of Stephen and Bethia Vail. The couple would make the Kinney House their home, having 4 children there between 1822 and 1828. Harriet passed away in June 1828 following complications during childbirth. In 1829 and 1830, Dayton sold several Speedwell lots, including the house, to his father-in-law Stephen Vail, although Dayton and his 2 sons remained living in the house until 1831. Born in 1780, Stephen Vail was a successful businessman, skilled mechanic, inventor, promoter of early railroads, farmer, Jacksonian Democrat, landowner, and enslaver. Stephen also served as a county surrogate and a blade judge in the Court of Common Pleas. While Stephen would consolidate his existing land holdings around the Speedwell Ironworks with these purchases, he and his wife Bethia would not live in what we now know as the Vail House for a decade, remaining down the street in their brick house south of the ironworks. In August 1831, Stephen's younger daughter Sarah and her husband, Dr. Silas C. Cutler, moved into the house. The Cutlers would raise their family in the house until 1841. Following the departure of the Cutlers, Stephen, age 60, looked ahead to his retirement and decided to remake the old Kinney house into his own mansion house. Between 1841 and 1844, major work on the house and surrounding property were undertaken. The 1840s work on the home included moving it onto a new cellar, taking down the old kitchen and building a new one, as well as extensive masonry work and moving of the chimneys. The aesthetic of the house also changed to Greek Revival, including a tin roof on the portico. Stephen constantly improved and remade his household environment to suit him, and his journals are full of notes indicating a routine of reworking plumbing and furnace pipes, installing and repairing the kitchen pump and range. In 1862, he makes note of new steam heaters being installed in the house. Following Stephen Vail's death in 1864, the house and its contents passed to his granddaughter, Harriet Bethia Vail Cutler, and her husband, Stephen's stepson, John Hedges Lidgerwood. John and Harriet would go on to have 7 children in the home, 3 of whom would live at the house their entire lives. Lidgerwoods maintained large households, ranging from 10 to 14 people in various census records, which likely accounts for the various alterations to the residence and unorthodox room configurations the house experienced in the early 20th century. John H. Lidgerwood Jr. and his 2 sisters, Florence and Harriet, lived at the house until their deaths, and by 1955 there was no clear heir to the property. Between 1956 and 1964, the property remained vacant and changed hands between several property developers. In 1964, plans for Speedwell Village were announced, focusing on restoration of the Vail House and factory building. Restoration work got underway in 1967, and by 1968, additions to the rear of the Vail House were being removed. In the 1970s, the Junior League of Morristown became actively involved in the preservation of the Vail House, providing financial assistance and creating a committee to oversee the work. The property opened to the public as Speedwell Village. In 2002, the Morris County Park Commission took over the administration of what is now historic Speedwell and has been systematically continuing the preservation and education work which began in the 1960s.